everybody attended our meeting this evening. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our agenda items this evening are for the approval of the July and special August meetings. I ask for a motion for approval.
Motion to approve. I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved. Next item would be regarding public hearing.
Yeah, and we do need to add an item number 12. It's the resolution on reconfiguration. State said we need to do something a little different. Okay, a public hearing regarding negotiations. A few years ago, the legislators changed some laws and said before you can start negotiations, you have to have a public hearing, giving the Teachers Association an opportunity to speak if they so choose. And I will speak, and anyone in the public that wants to speak. So Tori Lance is here. Tori, do you have anything you'd like to say?
I just want to say thank you for your time and consideration as we go into negotiations. I know it's never fun for anyone. It's a long process.
Okay, and we'll be getting that started here pretty soon. Wednesday, Tori and myself are going to an herb meeting in Indianapolis. Kelly had already scheduled that he was going to attend, so we'll go down there and see what words of wisdom Herb has for this upcoming negotiations. But we'll certainly do the best we can. Quite often things are going to be somewhat limited, but we will make it work, and I anticipate that will start in mid-September.
We're going to continue moving on to personnel.
Okay, I'd like to recommend Allison Stills as 7th and 8th grade girls volleyball coach and Haley Smith as assistant 7th and 8th grade girls volleyball coach.
I'll make a motion to approve both of them.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved. Then, should we go ahead and add the resolution for configuration now?
Well, I put it on number 12, but we could do it.
I didn't know if you wanted that ahead of the public numbers. But either way's fine.
Nah, we can do it on 12.
Okay.
Since that's what it's on.
We're going to continue moving on to claims docket. Any questions, comments, or concerns on the docket? If not, I ask for a motion when we're ready.
I'll make a motion to approve the claim docket.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved.
Okay, I'd like to make some comments on the balance sheet. The major funds, when we talk about the major funds, is operations and education, rainy day. They're holding their own, but I just want you to be aware, it's only because a lot of dollars that came out of the construction fund the last few years. Right now, our cash balance of all of them is about the same as the start of the year, but 400,000 has came out of the construction fund. And a few years ago when that started, there was 1.2 million in the construction fund, and now there's 400,000 in it, which that 800,000 that's been used for good purposes probably. Had you not had the construction fund, that would have came out of the operations fund, and your operation fund would be broke. So you gotta be aware of that. And before they changed the law, you had a general fund, you had a capital projects fund, you had a bus replacement fund, you had a transportation fund. And I always said those silos kind of protected you from yourself because they changed it. Now they're just an education fund and an operation fund. But prior to that, in the general fund, some things that were being paid for out of the general fund no longer can be paid for out of the general fund, such as central office expenses, custodial expenses, and that's why schools have traditionally transferred 15% of their education fund into operations because to make it work. Well, a few years ago, you were transferring 400,000, and that's been reduced. Right now, you're only transferring 120,000, and over the long haul, that won't work because in the capital projects fund and the bus replacement, the idea that you build up funds so you would have funds to do a project, or you'd have funds to buy a bus when you build up, or once all through into one silo, the temptation, many places here included, and just use it, and there's no money built up that way. And you've got by with it because you've had the construction fund money to kind of fall back on. But that ain't gonna be feasible forever. So that's something we have to look at down the road, because probably more like 250, 300,000 should be getting transferred from education to operations, because otherwise you're going to, the day of reckoning will come and it won't be pretty. You don't look at doing that down the road.
So really, like, a lot of things have came out of that shouldn't have came out of it.
Well, not necessarily if they're good things, but just had you not had that, those good things would have came out of the operations, because that's where it normally would have came out of, and you wouldn't have anything left. So it's bought you some time, but you have to, those other funds naturally need to grow.
Right.
Like right now, it looks like education fund's just going bananas. Well, that's good, except not transferred nearly what should be, because you take the central office expenses, there's easily 150,000 that used to come out of the general fund that now has to come out of operations. You take the custodians, used to come out of the general fund, now it comes out of operations. So you can't pay those out of the education fund, so that's why the transfer was put in effect. So something we have to look at closely.
So really, Kelly was telling us one thing.
Well, maybe not necessarily, maybe a lack of understanding, but more so, you had the money in operation, so you did good things with it. You just can't continue at that rate.
I
Because it won't
understand.
work. Yeah.
If we didn't have the CDs that we had, or the investments.
I understand, yeah.
Then we would have been sucking away there, plus and we should just, again, to what Kim's point, we've been using it right, but if we didn't have a balance, most corporations don't have investments. If we didn't have the investments, we would have been in deficit between those two funds.
It's something to be aware of moving forward. And we can deal with it, but we'll have to deal with it. So
Thank
just
you, Gib.
make you aware of that. Okay.
Based upon the balance sheet, that's the information. Are there any questions for Mr. Grimmett while we're here? Now we'll move on to public comments. Are there any public comments this evening?
I'd just like to say one thing. Who's mowing the grass?
Scottsville, Jared.
Well, I think it looks terrible to come up and see all that grass on the flagpoles along that wide sidewalk there. All the things up and not be mown. If you want to, I'll come down and do it for you.
Come down and mow the grass.
I'll bring my weed whacker down.
Yeah, I think he's done a
I
good
think
job
that
of
looks
keeping up
terrible
on
that
it.
flagpole, all that grass up on there.
I think he's done a good job of keeping up on it over the summer, but his wife is ill and so he's missed a few days this past couple weeks. He's been out a little bit, so. we definitely don't want you to have to come up with your weed whacker. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
Any further public comments? We'll continue moving on then to recommendations concerning construction.
Okay, I know you've talked for some time about different construction, the hospital pole building and I told you I wouldn't have a recommendation. The pole building needs to be independent of the bond issue because you have a $3 million threshold on the bond issue. You can't split projects up and go over $3 million to beat the system. So it needs to be separate from it. And I think from what people I've talked to, I think we need to move forward with this building. And if you want to use $100,000 ESSER money, you're going to have to move forward pretty quick because that has to be encumbered by the end of September and spent by the end of the year. And I think that's doable if we get right after. The building ain't going to be done by then, but it's going to cost more than $100,000 to. I recommend the acceptance of the quote from the pole barn specialist for that, and the concrete's $114,500, and then we'll need to work on the best pricing for the site work, the cement, or electrical, the HVAC, and things like that.
Well, I have a question. Are they, are we locked in that price, Brian?
Locked in at what?
Are we locked in on that estimate that was given?
Well, they told us they were. That's what it says.
Yeah,
Okay,
my understanding is also.
okay,
And just the other things were variable, the other expenses
Thank
that
you.
might be coming after the fact.
thank you.
Because I anticipate, you're kind of doing a building without an architect and trying to figure it out. I think it may very well cost you $250,000 before it's done, which will mean you have $150,000 of construction money you'll have to use to get it done. You better allow for that. And it'll be 40 by 40 on the one end for the STEM building. The other 40 by 40 will primarily be storage at the moment, with the potential to do, other things down the road.
So we have one motion.
I'll second that motion too.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved.
We'll get started on that tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay, design criteria developer, you've used this process in the past, we understand. I'd like to recommend the Rawlings Group as design criteria consultant. He can start the process and decide just what yet, but he can't start that process until we do that. And my understanding that the board was very pleased with his work in previous projects.
We have a motion by the board for the design criteria developer.
I'll make a motion to approve.
And do you have a second?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved from the Rawlings Group.
And then you need to appoint a technical review committee, and I understand that's been 5 people in the past. Some of you probably have served on that before. Dan Rawlings will be one of them, normally 3 school people. I'm more than willing to do that if you want to, but you need to appoint people for that committee.
So do we just make it a point that we are approving the creation of a committee at this point then?
Right, but then we have to know who's going to be on that committee.
Tim, what was the committee that Kelly, the last meeting?
Yeah, because we did have a committee together and Mrs. Adams on it, right? So is that different?
I think that's probably different, but I'm not sure.
Finance. Yeah.
That's the Board of Finance, probably. Yeah, that's different. Now, this is
I
one
just
that,
wanted to make sure.
when Dan Rawlings puts together the different point system,
Right.
and then that committee recommends what design builder to contract.
Okay.
So is that a conversation we have this evening if we don't, to discuss who it may be or?
Right, who wants to do it or something, we could talk about that at a later time, but it needs to be done soon.
I'll make a motion.
Well, you might make a motion that may appoint the school people. I'm not going to appoint people you guys don't know, because I don't.
Yeah, we did a conflict with it, monitoring, is what Mr. Crimmins is asking for. In the past, I know Mr. Stajur was always part of it, being in charge of the school, and I don't know, with his challenges, if that's something you think is applied to this point, Brian, or?
I think we can still do it, yeah.
Penny, were you always on it too, Brian?
I was on-
You're on the holding corporation, I believe.
I was on building corporation and technical review committee as well.
Oh, okay.
I believe Dick Booker was on the last two. So,
Well, once we create this, do we have to verify that their acceptance prior to creating this?
No, I can verify. You tell me who to verify with. We'll make it happen.
Any other recommendations?
You'll take the place for the board.
What?
You will be on for the board then?
I'm more than willing to, yeah.
Yeah.
So we just need one more.
You can give me the names later, just so we,
Okay.
I don't think they have to be voted on this, so.
Okay,
Okay,
then I'll ask for a motion for the
Yeah.
continuance.
yeah, okay. I'll make the motion for the continuance.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Sounds like you're the most favorite.
Okay, and some information concerning the potential big construction project. I met with the roofing company last week and looked at different options. Brian Meese talked about different options. I anticipate, we have a budget budget hearing on September 11th, and I'd like to schedule a special session, and I anticipate having a recommendation at that meeting. Key points of what you want to do moving forward on that construction project. Nothing tonight. And then number 12, resolution of the board, Tri-Township Consolidated School Corporation to reconfigure the grade level. You did it last spring where you reconfigured, I think, kindergarten through fifth, and now the state says they want you to include pre-K, even though there's in funding, they want to track it. So this resolution adds pre-K to the elementary school configuration. Recommend approval of that.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved. Moving on to principal report.
yeah, so I handle all of you guys assessment data for iLearn and iRead. So just to kind of go over that a little bit, on the bottom of the first page is our iRead 3 results. Last year we had 95.7% pass. The state average I have right there is 81.9. So again, you know, the year before we were at 100%. So in the last 2 years, we've done quite well on iRead 3. And I see that continuing if we do well on that. 60% of our second graders also, all of our second graders took it last year as well. This is the second year that we've done that. The first year was a pilot program by the state. This past year was everyone in the state did it. Generally, any student that was on track in second grade, about 98%, 99% of those from 21, 22 to 22, 23 passed iRead 3 then in third grade. So we had 60% of our second graders either passed or on track to pass for this coming school year. I would say it was just under 40% passed already. So they don't have to take iRead now this year as third graders. They can just concentrate on the iLearn. Our iLearn results are there for third through eighth, showing you at each proficiency level and then the total number tested. And then I also put the state average on there. I will tell you with our smaller enrollment, it can cause some drastic changes and increases and decreases in our percentages. One student can be in some classes is 4 or 5% difference. So we had some classes that we had a lot of kids right at the approaching proficiency level, had a couple kids that were within 15 points of passing. So that can change our numbers drastically where other schools it might not, just having a few students, but ours can. So there's definitely room for improvement. Our goal is not to be at the state average. Our goal is to be above the state average each year. And that's something that we've had a lot of conversations about this year already. So things that we're doing so that we can raise these test scores. We're working with Michelle Grew from NESIC to provide some ELA and math training for our teachers in K through 8. Even though K through 2 does not have iLearn, we want to make sure that they're getting the kids prepared for iLearn and making sure that we're doing everything we can to be vertically aligned in our classroom. So that's another thing that a lot of conversations we've had with K through 5 teachers is being vertically aligned, making sure that whatever they end in 2nd grade, we're picking up in 3rd grade and moving forward. So the last 2 years we've been able to give grades 3 through 5 and then grades K through 2 common prep time. So when all their kids go to specials, they're all there together. So one thing that, being a smaller school, it's hard to have professional learning communities or where the teachers meet weekly. If you only have one 1st grade teacher or one 2nd grade teacher, it's hard for them to be able to bounce ideas. So we're having kind of mini PLCs as far as 1st and 2nd together, K through 2 together, 3 through 5 together. Doing the same thing at the junior high and high school level. So teachers are working on that iLearn training and vertical alignment. As far as interventions, we did put back in the schedule this year. We had at the high school level. We did not have it at the junior high level before, and that's SRT, so student resource time. For the junior high, it's from 12 to 12, or from 12:30 to 1 every day. And so this first 15 days, our goal was for the teachers that have all the junior high kids to get to know them, build a relationship with them, and then moving forward, after Labor Day, we're going to start having math and ELA interventions at least 3 times a week during that time. We have different ideas, and we're going to sit down this week and try to finalize all of it. Are we rotating the kids to our math teacher and ELA teacher and getting some extra time for them in those classes? At the elementary level, we have our Title I services with Mrs. Satoski and Mrs. Augsburger this year. They're sharing those Title I services. Mrs. Augsburger will be handling 2nd and 3rd grade. Mrs. Satoski will be handling K1, 4, and 5. So they'll be having their pull-out times with kids. And then we also have our paras doing a little bit more one-on-one and small group instruction with our students. Pulling them out for maybe 4 or 5 minutes at a time, working on something that, addressing an achievement area that they're weak in, and then getting them back into class. And also having our paras get into the classroom as much as possible so we can do more small group instruction. And then last year we started having the kids go into the classrooms a little earlier. Instead of 7:50, they go right as soon as they get off the bus. So they don't come in here and eat breakfast. They're going straight into the classrooms. And that's going to be an area where we can then start providing additional help as well for students. So depending on if their parents bring them early, or maybe it's a conversation we have with parents of, can we get your kid here a little bit earlier so we can give some additional help. So that second page kind of shows you just the scores from the area as well, and where we're at. Like I said, if you look at schools, sometimes it just depends on the classes too. They do really well in some areas, and then other areas it's just the numbers just fluctuate right now. And you can see the state averages are not very high to begin with. So there are some changes ahead for the testing. So what they're doing is academic standards changed at the end of last school year. They were approved. So they wanted to take the academic standards from the state now and shrink them down a little bit so there wasn't so many for teachers to cover. So we started working on those new academic standards over the summer and beginning of this school year to find out that the old 2020 standards will still be the ones used for this year's iLearn test. So even though we're going, we're using the new standards, which are just more pinpointing the high priority standards. But those will be the ones that will be used for this year's iLearn. And then starting in 24-25, The state is looking at getting away from having just that one time at the end of the year summative assessment on the students that's over multiple days. And they want to start having checkpoints throughout the year. Very similar to what we do now with NWEA, where the kids take that test 3 times throughout the year. The state is looking at doing something more along that lines in 25, 26. That would be their goal. They have a pilot program next school year to be able to do those things. But it would just be so that you can checkpoint a kid in December and see where they are falling behind still, and you can create more interventions sooner than waiting till the end of the year. So, are there any questions on the iLearner iRead?
I would say we need this step.
And as far as the start of the school year, we've had a great start of the school year. It's nice having the kids back in the building. You go most of the summer, and also towards the end of the year, you don't miss them as much. You're hoping that you get some time away from them, and then by, I would say, middle of July, you're wanting them back in here as quick as possible. And they probably feel the same way. But we've had a good start to the school year. And I think the teachers have had a really good start since the first 2 days, teacher days. Had a lot of good conversations, good meetings. And so we'll continue to work on improving these scores and just improving other areas that the staff has found that we want to be better at this year. So that's all
Brian, I do have a question. Like, seeing this right here, me personally, I think academics comes way before any sport. And we gotta get our numbers up. We gotta fix what's within the school before we're putting all this money into sports. That's just my opinion. We have a policy book. The policy book should be stuck to for each kid across the line. I mean, we've had problems with discipline within the school. And it shouldn't be Johnny gets this and Kelly gets this. It should be, we have a policy book for a reason. The policy book should be stuck to. And it was a big problem last year. I'm not saying that's you. I'm just saying it was a big problem last year.
Move on to the superintendent report.
Okay, I'd echo a lot of what Brian said. You know, people have been very cooperative here to start the school year. You know, understanding that, you know, they know more about a lot of things than I know about a lot of things, but they share and work well together. I met with Sandra Wood at Westville, see how this shared programming is going. And the next week or two, her and the principals and myself are going to meet again, because we want this thing to work and work well. It's off to a good start right now. I spent quite a bit of time studying and understanding the budget so I can help you guys understand what direction I think you're headed or need to head. Had a meeting with the special ed director to find out that process. Service center meeting, met last week with the roofing contractor, brought me up to date on their thoughts from their study, and they've shared that with some of you already in the pricing and so forth. But we're plugging away and getting some of them things figured out. It's taking a certain amount of time. Later on, there may not be quite as many meetings, you know, I hope, but that's just the way it is sometimes. We have to do that. That's all I have.
Motion to adjourn.
Second that.
All in favor? Aye. Next board meeting, September 11th at 6 p.m. for the budget hearing.